Hey, welcome to another great edition of Mississippi Stories. I'm your host, Marshall Ramsey, editor-at-large at Mississippi Today. If you're not familiar with Mississippi Today, well, you found us here, but you can always check out our great work at MississippiToday.org. And of course, if you'd like to make a donation, you can always hit the donation because we are a nonprofit news source. And of course, we bring Mississippi to you. And I'm really excited about our guest today. This is the fourth time I've gotten a chance to sit down and have a conversation with him, and just actually got to talk to him a couple days ago. And I'm a huge fan, and I tell you what, his career is definitely skyrocketing. He, of course, is the chief conductor of the Nova Orchestra Wien. Now, that's Vienna's newest professional orchestra. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show, William Garfield Walker. William, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here and to have the opportunity to talk to you again in such a short period of time.
Yeah, this has kind of become the new normal. I'd imagine for you too, particularly over the last year and a half, being in Vienna, Austria, where everything generally is, it's kind of funny. Y'all shut down a lot tighter than we do here, but I guess Zoom is kind of the new normal, isn't it?
Well, I think it's a new normal everywhere. And unfortunately, looking forward to getting back in person with people. But until then, Zoom is a much better opportunity than phone, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I've actually gotten to where I actually kind of enjoy it. It's kind of nice to be able to sit in your kitchen and be able to conduct interviews. There is there is kind of a nice, you can wear shorts and kind of be real casual and everything. Yeah. Hey, thanks
kitchen table interviews.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. I know you're not home for very long. How long have you been home for, and how long are you going to be home?
Well, I've been home altogether maybe about 2 weeks. In between, I got here around the middle of November and was here for Thanksgiving, which I was very happy about. The first Thanksgiving in a very long time I had the opportunity to be home. Then I had to go the next week to Florida to conduct 3 concerts with the Symphony of the Americas in Fort Lauderdale, and now I'm back home on the other end of that. And so it's great to be back.
How did the concerts in Florida go?
No, they went well. 3 back-to-back performances. So we had one on a Friday, then we had 2 on a Saturday, a matinee, and then the evening performance, and it was just a lot of fun.
I know. I would imagine after the last couple of years, any chance you can get up in front of a whole orchestra and in front of an audience and everything else, you kind of jump at, don't you?
Oh yeah, I mean, just the opportunity to do what you love is just always great.
I can only imagine. I mean, I've spoken to maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people before, just being in front of an audience like that and being in front of, doing the energy that you must feel as a conductor just must be off the charts when you do that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, these concerts in Florida, for example, I was conducting an orchestra, about 70 people, a 70-piece orchestra. Plus 2 choirs on the second half of the program, so an orchestra and 2 choirs. So you had well over 100 people on stage, and that's exhilarating in itself. But for these programs, I was actually narrating the concert, and so as well. So I would walk out and conduct a piece by William Grant Still to open the concert, a Mississippi composer actually, from Woodville, Mississippi, and then the piece ends very dramatically and it's over, and then everybody's applauding. Now I have to turn around and start talking to about, just over 1,000 people. And so that was exciting in itself. And so, and kind of, different for me. Normally you don't do as much talking, but it was interesting.
I've always enjoyed, for years I've had the pleasure of being the MC for the Pepsi Pops concert that the Mississippi Symphony Orchestra, of course, does every year. And Kraft does such a good job, being able to engage the audience and do sort of like that. It's, to me, I don't think I would have the bandwidth to be able to handle, being able to talk to both sides of the audience, the audience and the symphony at the same time.
Well, it's definitely something a little different. I'll say that for sure. Yeah.
Well, let's cover familiar ground, at least when we're talking to each other. Of course, you're from here in Jackson, and I think that's just such a great story that you grew up and you went to Jackson Public Schools, and I know you're very proud of your time there, and you came across many great mentors. Tell us a little bit. I mean, let's just rehash your beginnings because I think it's such a great story. How old were you when you got interested in music and you thought about, this is what I want to do for a living?
Um, well, I never really said to myself, this is what I want to do for a living. I just kind of woke up one day and realized that this is what I'm doing for a living. It
Yeah.
just kind of,
Right.
I just kind of, I started off in JPS, taking string class. So I studied the cello. I was playing cello and saxophone in the band. And then you just move from your beginning class to your intermediate class to the advanced group to then playing some professional concerts and playing exclusively professional concerts and then going to college and the next thing this is what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there was this, and I love it. You just start out playing strings, and next thing you know, you want to conduct, and next thing you know, you're starting orchestras. And next thing it has been fun watching how this, and it seems like you have been blessed along the way to run into almost like people with angel wings that you can't see,
Oh yeah.
that have been mentors and have been people that believe in you and that people that have lifted you up. Tell us a little bit about that experience because I mean, I know that mentors have been a very big part of your career so far.
Well, I think not even just for music, for musicians, but for every profession that you can go into, you have to have a mentor. You have to have people who can help you, help guide you in the right direction, or at least tell you what not to do. And I've been very blessed to have both types of people who tell me what to do and what not to do,
Yeah.
and then an entirely different set of people who say, okay, now we're going to help you do it. And so I feel incredibly fortunate to have had the opportunity to had so many incredible mentors around.
You had a lot of people that really truly believe in you too. And I know you were on my radio show with Mississippi Public Broadcasting on Monday, and we had Carol Puckett, who does Deep South Dining with Malcolm
Yes.
White. And Carol is absolutely one of the best champions of the arts in Mississippi. She's just
Oh yeah.
fantastic. But I love the story that she told how she bumped into you. I mean, this is great. It was such a classic. You run into famous Mississippians when you're not in Mississippi. But she was up in Aspen, and of
Oh
course
yeah.
you had been honored. I mean, you were chosen to be one of the at Aspen Institute, one of the fellows, and out of 33 out of 200 people who applied, or something like that. I remember the number, just incredible to conduct. But anyway, she's walking through the woods, and they've got these signs up on poles, and there you are. And it says Jackson, Mississippi. And she's like, well, we have to get to know him. And she has been a huge supporter of you, along with Peyton Prosper and several other folks.
Oh yeah. It's been an incredible time getting to know Carol and to know Peyton as well, and John Palmer. Actually, at Aspen, that's one of my favorite stories because I was there as a conducting fellow the summer of 2018, and it's one of these things where it feels like meant to be type of situations, because I remember getting a call from the festival before going, hey, we would like to feature you on a poster, would you be okay with that?
Yeah.
And sure, you can feature me if you like. And then they say, well, okay, well, send us a photo, and if fill out this questionnaire. And so I did that, and got there and looked at it, okay, it looks nice. And then I'm just doing the program. And then one day I got an Instagram message from Carol Puckett, who saying, hey, we see you're from Mississippi. We're from Mississippi. It would be great to meet. And I said, well, I'm conducting a concert this evening or afternoon.
Yeah.
It's my last time. It would be great for you to come to the concert. And they did. They came. And it ended up not being my last time. I got another chance after that, unplanned completely. But it was so great to get to meet them, and that friendship has developed over the course of the past 3 years now.
Yeah, they've helped create the foundation that helps Nova Orchestra, and
Exactly.
yeah, and I think that's fantastic, and that allows you not only to have that support structure, but also to obviously have funds to help pay for musicians and to help you
Yep.
and so forth. So It's been great. That's one thing I do love about Mississippi
Yeah.
is that it's almost like a club in the
Oh
sense,
yeah.
if you're outside, if you do something really well on the national stage, people love it. And of course, you've done something really well on the international stage. So that's great. And I was going to throw this out here too. My wife teaches with Jerome Hawkins,
Oh,
who used to teach strings with JPS, and he now teaches up
yeah.
in the Madison schools. And he said to say hello and that he's very proud of you.
All right. Hello back.
Yeah, it's cool. He plays. I always love seeing him playing. He plays, I guess, violin in the symphony. So
Yeah.
it's always neat to see Jerome. He's a great guy. But what age were you when you started playing in the band? Was it middle school? Is that when you started?
Yeah. So I started in the band in middle school,
Yeah.
sixth grade actually.
Okay, and you played saxophone.
Saxophone, yes.
Yeah. How did you end up picking saxophone?
To be honest with you, I don't know.
Really?
I can't remember. It
Huh.
just kind of happened.
You just woke up with
I just
saxophone. Yeah.
well, no, I signed up for the band class. I don't know how I ended up with the saxophone. I honestly don't know. But I love the instrument still
Yeah.
to this day. But I don't know how I got it, and I've never thought about it actually until this moment.
Oh
So-
no. Hey, Mom, I got a question for you. How did I end up with a saxophone? So I know of my three boys, my oldest played baritone and my middle one played French horn, and I loved them because they were supplied by the school.
Yeah.
Like, free instrument, yay. And my youngest played trumpet. So that
Yeah.
one we had to buy. So that was okay. But you play pretty much every instrument now, don't you?
Well, I mean, as a conductor, we make the joke that
Yeah.
conductors play the entire orchestra because you are conducting all the instruments at the same time. But the instruments that I actually learned how to play because I was interested in composition and in writing music, and I was
Yeah.
also interested in conducting music, and so I said, well, it would be good if I had some practical experience, if I knew kind of how every family of instruments, if not every instrument, but at least every family of instruments worked from a practical standpoint. So while I was still here in Jackson, I started, of course, cello and saxophone, but I would pick up the horn, the French horn.
Mhm.
I picked up the euphonium. I started playing bassoon. I started playing, the other types of saxophones. I started on alto, so I did also tenor and baritone sax. And then I also studied a little piano. In college, you have to take 2 years of piano. And
Okay.
so I was able to test out of my final few semesters. And so I picked up the organ. And then I started playing also timpani. And so, I just wanted to have, I wasn't looking to become professional on all these instruments. I just wanted to know how they work so that I could, so I could understand from a personal perspective how
Yeah.
they work and, could write hopefully better music for the instruments and not just something that's unplayable.
Right. And I would think too, obviously, no, when you're writing music, and like I said, I'm probably more familiar with friends that are like play rock and roll or play pop. They write songs. Some will write on their guitar, some will write on their piano. When you write music, which instrument do you normally write with?
So it's for me. I mean, sometimes I'll sit down at a piano and play through some things and try to notate what I've just played.
Yeah.
But very often I just kind of I just play with my brain. I
Okay.
try to hear it in my head.
Yeah.
And I just try to write down what I hear.
Do you paint or draw or write or do anything, or is it just strictly music?
I'm one of the boring ones. I do just music.
You do just music. You make it sound like you do just music. I mean, it's pretty huge, but I get that. The reason I was asking is like when I draw and I write, even though they're very different disciplines, it all comes the same way. So, I'm trying to describe whatever it is I see in my head. So when you're writing music, you're pretty much, you hear it in your head and then you're trying to get it down on paper in notes.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, the creative process on that I figured was similar enough, but I would have I can play some music, but I would not be able to write music like that. But I can see how that would work like that. When you were, one of the things I loved, you and I've talked about this. When you first start out, you're learning to play notes, right? And then you
Yeah.
learn how to play music, which is entirely different because you're putting feeling into those notes and you're creating something and creating an experience. At that point, that's when you decided you wanted to become the conductor. How old were you when you said, the conducting looks interesting? And who were the first, who was the first groups that you were actually able to get up in front of and conduct?
Well, so I kind of got interested in conducting when I was still in high school,
Okay.
though there weren't many opportunities because I was writing music, and so for orchestra, so somebody needed to conduct it, and so I was trying to do that a little bit. Um, but the first opportunity was when I was in 11th grade. I went to a summer camp in Vermont,
Mm.
and I was the Kinhaven Music School, and I was, allowed the opportunity to have some pieces performed. They had a student composers evening concert, and so I wanted to get some of the orchestra music performed. That was an opportunity to conduct something, but I didn't know what I was doing. Then I had also the opportunity when I was in high school at the Interlochen Arts Academy to study conducting, and that came actually just completely by accident. I was playing orchestra playing cello in the orchestra, and it was the conductor's orchestra, the student conductor's orchestra, and the student conductors weren't that good. High school, age, and so. A lot of us in the orchestra were laughing, and notice I said us. That includes me, and I was sitting first chair cello, and the conducting teacher said, "Okay, now you do it." And so I said, "Me? Oh, yeah, you do it. You get up." And so I got up there. I had no clue what I was doing, and made a fool of myself. And then they were all laughing at me as well, and but afterwards he said, well, maybe you would like to take some lessons. And so I took a semester of conducting in high school at Interlochen, and then later on I founded an orchestra in Chicago because I was interested in going, funny enough, to the Aspen Music Festival as a conducting fellow. I didn't get in after with this the first time. It's very difficult, but eventually I did get in. But to be able to apply in the first place, you have to have a video of you conducting because they don't just let anybody in. And so I put together this a group of friends to make a video for the audition, and that just kind of blossomed into, an actual orchestra. We gave a few concerts for the next few years, just, one or two per semester. But it was a lot of fun. And so those were really kind of the first few orchestras that I conducted. And I had the opportunity when I was in Cleveland to conduct a wind ensemble. Dwight Altman was the conducting professor at Baldwin Wallace Conservatory, and he gave me this opportunity quite early, and remained a mentor for many years. And even this day, I'll call him up and say, ask a few questions. Hey, what did you did you ever run into this problem before, or what do I do here? And so back again to having great mentors around.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. What in conducting school, when you're interlocking, you're taking a conducting class, what are some of the things they teach you in that? Obviously, I think most people are familiar with conductors. They see it, they see that, they do not understand it. They just think you're up waving a stick. There is a lot to that, to the job. Obviously, you've got to keep, it's like herding cats. You got to keep all the cats all together and everything on that. But tell us a little bit about what are some of the things that you learn when you're learning how to be a conductor?
Oh man, so the very basic way is just just what are the patterns? How do you show the different meters of music? So music is grouped into because it's it's a language. Music is just another language, and so it's you have to organize it some way, and so you have to learn the grammar of the music basically. and so that means meters, that means how to read all of the different instruments, music, and at the same time, and so score reading basically, and understanding how they work. And so I had a little legs up because I had played a bunch of them already. Really for conducting school, it's a lot more theoretical than it is practical. I mean, you have the practical experience of conducting an orchestra every now and then, but it's very much more about learning the different musical theories and the theory behind the music, and about being able to just hear it by reading it. Otherwise, it's like having a book and being able to read the book, but you have to also be able to write the book a little bit to really be considered literate. Becoming literate in another language. If you can read, but you can't write a letter.
Right.
So you have to just become completely literate in the music, and it's not easy. It's not easy conducting school, because it is so theoretical, and then you finally get in front of the orchestra, and it has to be just natural, and you have to be able to show people when to come in at the right time. But it's a lot more than just that. There's a lot of it behind it. We could stay here for a few hours if you want to.
No, I mean, like I said, I think it's fascinating because, like I said, until I met you, and of course I know Kraftenbeck, just through professional association and working with them a little bit on a couple projects. I've always thought that it just was incredibly cool to get to do that, but I just never really knew much about it, and I just think it's fascinating. But for you, I mean, it's been fun watching your career because, like I said, you got interested in the cello because it was the biggest instrument. I love that story, by the way. And which go ahead and tell that one, because some folks may not know that, how you ended up getting the cello to play. I just think that's a great story.
Well, I don't remember how I got the saxophone, but the cello is very clear. I went to a strings class, and they said, well, which one do you want to play? And I said, well, the big one. I want to play the big one. And looking back, I know now that I was talking about the double bass. That's the biggest string instrument.
Yeah.
And so that's the one I went to play, but I didn't know the name of the instruments, and so I wanted the big one. And they brought out a violin, and I was like, no, I want the big one. It's the smallest one.
Yeah.
And then they brought back a cello, and I said, now I've got the big one. But we didn't have a double bass in the class, so I didn't know that I wasn't getting the largest one actually, but I was happy with the cello, and now I'm very happy that I learned how to play the cello as opposed to double bass, because the cello is just such an incredible instrument.
It really is. It's really gorgeous too. I mean, I love listening to a concert with a really good cello player. That's obviously. Oh, yeah. When did you start? What year did you start with strings?
Oh man, I don't know. I have to think about it. I must have been. I mean, I really started. I started like being able to really play. I remember in the 6th grade at the same time as with the saxophone. So I started late. I had one before.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between having one and actually being able to do a few things on it.
Yeah.
But that was when I was at Chastain, in the 6th grade, because I had the saxophone, I had the cello, and that's when I really improved as a cellist. And I got a lot better later. But this is when I feel like I really began as a cellist.
How long did you practice when you were in school a day?
Honestly, I didn't practice that much. I know it might come as a surprise, but I've always been one to try to practice efficiently.
Yeah.
Instead of just, because a lot of people they'll go to college, and they say, I want to come out and I want to win the best job and all this, and so I'm going to practice 1,000,000 hours every day. I mean, I can tell you stories about some guys locking themselves in a practice room, and I kid you not, for every day, for years, for like 12 hours, 13 hours, 15 hours, and then they come out and they've improved, but they haven't really improved that much because they're practicing mistakes. And so it's kind of sad, but Then you have other stories, like Mstislav Rostropovich, one of the greatest cellists in history. He could play everything, and everybody, all the great composers of his day wrote something for him because they said, well, this guy has endless possibilities. Now is the time. And if he'll do it, then, the piece will get exposure and all that type of it. He said he never practiced more than 2 hours per day, or
Really?
2 or 3 hours per day, except for one time in which he learned a concerto overnight by a good friend of his that was written for him. And they just sat and they sat there and they learned it together. The friend was a pianist, it's you have wide ranges of this, and for me, I was more than 2 or 3 hours. I wasn't Rostropovich, but I was maybe 4 or 5 hours per day.
So the whole the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing, you say it's more important to actually plan out and do perfect practice instead of worrying about, I got to get in 10,000 hours before I'm successful.
Well, you need the 10,000 hours, but you need 10,000 quality hours as opposed to just 10,000 hours. And so, like this guy I was talking about before, doing 15 hours in a day, he might have gotten 1,000 hours, 1,000 quality hours, but he had many more hours than the 1,000, but he didn't have the perfect practice. He didn't have the efficient practice in the number of, so he had 1,000 efficient practice hours and not 10,000, for example, when he might have had actually 50,000 hours,
When I draw, if I'm drawing a cartoon, I'm pretty much conscious the whole time. I can listen to music and do whatever, I can listen to even books and stuff. When I paint, I'm in total flow. When I paint, I just like completely get lost. I can lose 6 hours when I'm doing that. When you're playing music, obviously you're very focused on the piece. You want to make sure you get it perfect and everything else. But is there ever a sense of flow when you're playing? Because I would think that, I would get lost, I think, if I were playing, because it's just such a wonderful part of your brain that gets kicked in when you're doing it.
Well, I get lost in the music. I lose myself in the music trying to tell the story, trying to, because, the thing is, when you're practicing, you are trying to, you're practicing for the performance, of course. You're doing all this technical work, to make sure that you're playing clean, or that you're playing, the way that you want to play. But once you actually get there on the stage, it's not about any of that. That work is done. Or it should be done. And it's about, at this point, making the audience walk away feeling something. Whatever it is, I don't know what it's going to be, but they're going to feel something. And it's losing yourself in the music. And as a conductor, then it's also trying to get your musicians to lose themselves in the music as well. Over 100 people sometimes, or 200, even 300, to lose themselves in the music while still having the antennas up. Being, it's like a flock of birds moving together at the same time. They're flying and beautiful and everything like this, but at the same time they're moving at the same time, and so they lose themselves in the musical experience while at the same time they're locked in completely together with each other and hopefully with the conductor.
I would think one of the hardest things, and I always joked and called my editor when I was at the Clarion Ledger, I called him the ego whisperer, because he had 6 of us, but we were all very headstrong and all very good at what we did, but trying to get us to kind of work together and to make sure we were on the same page and everything. When you're dealing with people with that amount of talent and incredible, and I know that everybody's professional and everything, but you as a conductor, you have to have those relationships with everybody to make sure they're on their A game and so forth. You've got a real gift at doing that, being a kind of a people person. Is that something you've always been comfortable with? Is being able to challenge others and get them to work together as a team?
Well, definitely there's a large part of needing to, there's a large part of having to have this personal connection with people and being able to try to challenge people and get them to work together as a team. When you're a conductor, you have to. It's just like, if I'm moving my arms right now, you don't hear any sound. It doesn't work when it's just me by myself. You have to
Right.
have somebody, even if it's just one other person.
Right.
But they have to work as a team with you.
Yeah.
This one other person, and then if you have two people, as soon as you have another person, then it becomes even more difficult. And so for me, I've not really had a problem working with people. That's been one of the strengths that I've had. But I have had the I have also tried to figure out ways to more effectively work with people. But working with people, because you can be naturally good at talking to people and working with people, but you can always improve that. And so I'm always looking at ways to improve in everything I do.
Did you ever have any resistance early on when you got started? People saying, "Well, he's young." Was your age ever a factor having to deal with people? Because I mean, like I said, you hit. I mean, you were on a very high professional level at a very early age.
Well, with young conductors, it's always a problem. No matter who you are, no matter what how good you are, it's always a problem, because you show up and you come with a baby face, and you have an orchestra that some of them are 80 years old playing in the orchestra, and they in America there's not a mandatory retirement age. In Europe, it's 65.
They actually make musicians retire. Wow.
Well, because the orchestras there are state sponsored, and so you're a government employee, and they have a mandatory retirement age for all government employees of 65.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it just works that way there, in the orchestras.
Yeah.
But so I mean, either way, you're working with people who are probably two times or more than two times your age. And they've been playing in that orchestra since before you were born, and now you're going up there and you're having to say something. So everybody kind of experiences something. It would be if somebody says that they didn't, they're lying. I mean, no matter how, even if you're very famous, when you show up and you're 25 years old, people are going to look at you kind of strange and not take you so seriously. Some people, not everybody.
Yeah.
So I've run into it. Especially in the beginning, when you're bad, when you're just or when you're a beginner, you're a beginner, and so it's you're not doing things right, or you're messing up somehow, and because everybody practices, if when you play the cello or the piano, you can sit there and you can practice, so when you show up, you're good. But as a conductor, you have to you don't really, you can prepare, but you don't really get to practice until you get to the performance.
Yeah.
Which is in my mind all the rehearsal. For a conductor, the rehearsals are all performances.
I want to get into Nova Orchestra in just a second. But I've got to say, I mean, the fact that you went to Interlochen as a senior in high school, and you've had all these opportunities, and I always throw a lot of credit to parents for any student that's in band or in football, or doesn't want to matter, because they're getting them to the practice and everything. Your family gave you a ton of support along the way, didn't they?
Oh yeah. It's been an incredible. Like I wouldn't be anywhere.
Yeah.
Without my family. Especially my mom driving me to lessons, to music lessons, and instruments, purchasing instruments and music and all that type of stuff. I mean, I mean, we all of us musicians. I mean, but everybody, it's people doing sports, whatever. You have to have somebody in the beginning who's taking you to these lessons, and who's So I'm incredibly thankful.
Definitely. I mean, but you've had folks believe in you all along, and I can understand why. And I got to tell this real quick story, because you hit me with this on the way out from the radio station the other day. You said, "Oh yeah, I went to the Clarion Ledger." You were like in 7th grade, and you took me a picture, and I'm like, I felt like I was 105 years old when you said that. So, but that was kind of cool. You still have a copy of the picture, and let me know. I'll get you another picture now. So,
well, please do.
I'll have to do it.
I still have your picture. I have to go and go like a different room.
Yeah,
but I've still got your picture.
Well, I will do a caricature of you actually conducting. I will do that.
Please.
So I would, because that would be that would be kind of fun, to say the least on this. So the thing I like about you, and I really want to get into this part of it for probably the rest of our interview, is that we're going through COVID. We got Omicron now, or Omicron, or however you want to pronounce it. And I know it's hitting in Europe right now really, really hard. Are you going to be able to get back? I was just curious if they're going to let
In
you back.
terms of getting back, that shouldn't be a problem. Now, do I want to get back with the Omicron? I don't know, but
Yeah, no
but
kidding.
because I have a residence permit an
Okay.
Austrian residence permit, I can get in and out pretty easy. In the very beginning of the pandemic, it was, the rules were kind of fluid.
Yeah.
And nothing was defined, but now, they had to define things. They couldn't just, keep everybody stuck. And so,
Right.
I can get in. And then with the passport, a US passport, I can get back at any time. And so,
Oh, that's good. So you can travel back and forth, but you get over there, and like you said, you may end up being stuck in your house or in your apartment.
well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if Austria is going to go back into lockdown again, but they were in lockdown for about a month. So like as soon as I left, and then like 2 or 3 days later, they went into lockdown, and they didn't come out until like 2 or 3 days ago. So
yeah, I know Germany was
a
real mess. I would have assumed that Austria was right there along with them and so forth on that.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, and it's tough because when you're in the profession of being in front of a large group of people, it's kind of hard to do that sometimes when there's a pandemic. And so that really threw you into a loop. And I guess we'll start the story in March of 2020. You were here playing a concert at Millsaps with the Mississippi Symphony Orchestra.
Yes.
And you were conducting it. And then you hopped on a plane. You had a big performance that you were preparing for. And that's basically about when the wheels started coming off all around the world during the pandemic. So I'll let you tell the story, because honestly, you can tell it better than I can.
Well, you told it pretty well. So as you said, I was at Millsaps for a concert with the Mississippi Symphony Orchestra. That was March 7th, 2020. And the next day I was supposed to be flying, and I did fly to Munich, Germany, to the Bavarian State Opera to be an assistant conductor on a production of Boris Godunov with Mikhail Yurovsky, who had been another mentor of mine.
Yeah.
I had been working on that for well over, almost a year, I should say. This is a huge opportunity, a huge chance to be in a very famous space. The Bavarian State Opera with a very famous orchestra, and just everything around it is, you're talking about driving a Rolls Royce right now when you talk about the Bavarian State Opera. And, I got there, had been studying Russian a little bit, just so I wasn't, so I understood the text more than the translation a little bit. Got there, first rehearsal in the morning was, it was just, wow, it's real. I'm here, this is real. And went home for lunch and got an email saying, don't come back. Everything is closed. Not just our production, but the entire house was closing for an indefinite amount of time. And they said, go home. And oh
no.
So then then I said, well, I've got the place. I had a place there for a month, because these opera productions go for about a month, the rehearsals beforehand with the singers, and then with the orchestra later, and then several performances after that. And I basically said, well, I'd never been to Munich. I might as well stay here for a week, and then I'll go back to Vienna and try to ride this thing out if it gets a little worse, the pandemic. And towards the end of the week, so this happened around Monday or Tuesday. By Friday, it was late night there, but I guess probably middle of the day here. I just checked my phone, looked down, and saw U.S. closes border with Europe, like the entire continent. I said, okay, I need to get back to Vienna before the Europe closes borders within itself. Which it did shortly after I arrived in Vienna. Germany closed its border with Austria. And, I arrived in Vienna by train, about 4-hour train ride, like going from Jackson just past Memphis or so. and yeah, it just said, the chancellor, the Austrian chancellor, basically kind of like their version of our president. They have a president too, but got on television and said, we are going to start closing shops. We're going to start closing restaurants from 3 p.m. onwards, and everybody was starting to freak out. And then he came back on the next day saying, actually, we're not reopening shops after tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Just completely closing. And Austria went into a very hard lockdown from March until about June. You couldn't go anywhere except for the supermarket, and you could go for a little walk around the block if you had a dog, to take your dog on a walk, and you couldn't meet with anybody outside of your household, and they had police patrolling the streets to check to make sure that you were doing what you were supposed to be doing, going where you're supposed to be going, and if you're with somebody else, they'd make sure you're in the same household, and it was tough.
I would think that would be slightly hard to do what you do in that circumstance. So you were sitting there in your apartment, probably thinking, "Oh, this is fun. I've gone through Netflix. There's not much else I can do right now." How long you had to be literally depressed, I would think, because you'd worked so hard on getting that production ready, and here you're running out of town with your backpack on, trying to get home before it shuts down, leaving that all behind.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get from being in complete shock, like the rest of the world was in, to coming up with an idea to create an orchestra and to be able to figure out a way, something to do when the world started opening back up?
Well, it would be misleading if I were to say that I wasn't in complete shock during this time,
Right.
but at the same time, as soon as they canceled the production around lunch. By dinner, I was thinking about, well, what can I do to move forward?
Right.
What is possible to, what can we do when they start opening things up again?
Yeah.
Because I said, you just have to do something. I mean,
Well,
like I said, it would be misleading to say I there wasn't shock there.
Yeah.
And it would also be a lie if I said there wasn't any Netflix. There was a lot of Netflix. But at the same time, it was, there would be a Netflix series. You're watching series, not an episode, but a series at a time. But in between episodes or in between series, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, can we have a concert? When we have the concert, what repertoire do we do? Who do we hire? Where will it be? And can I contact somebody to try to make this thing keep going, and try to keep some momentum? And talk about Mississippi connections. Claudia Arnold Ziegler, and a lady who was born to Austrian parents in New York City, and then they came down to Mississippi, Jackson, Clinton, and lived down here. She grew up here, and went back to Vienna in between, like primary school and college. She went to Millsaps. I had just met her a few months before, and she had been approached by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia about organizing a concert for the G20, because they were chairing the G20 economic forum, and they wanted to have a concert for that. And so she called me up, during the pandemic, maybe about late April or May, saying, "Can you do that in Vienna?" I said, "Of course we can do it in Vienna." And so so from that point on, it's still in the middle of the lockdown, not sure about anything. We were planning this concert, and the idea was to have 20 different musicians from the 20 G20 nations.
Oh, wow.
And to represent them and to live stream it to the digital conference, because everybody was still doing the lockdowns and Zoom calls like us. And so we did it. We had our first concert after lockdown on the July 15th, 2020, and I'm very proud of that, because we were one of the first orchestras in Europe to perform after lockdown, And at this time, to my knowledge, no orchestra in the U.S. was doing anything because they couldn't. With the very strict. The reason why we were able to do it was because the numbers in Austria were very, very low. It basically gotten back to normal. They were basically, people were saying, oh, well, that was a strange period. I guess COVID's gone.
Yeah.
You fast forward to October 2020, and they went back into a very hard lockdown, which lasted until about May 2021.
Oh,
and
wow.
so, but yeah, so that's kind of how the first lockdown went for me.
Yeah, when you're number one, because you were saying that obviously musicians in Europe are they're hired by the state. I mean, they're state employees more or less. How do you come up with an orchestra? And do you have a Rolodex, which is a very old-fashioned term for, I guess, what contacts on your phone? But I mean, you've obviously played with people, you've conducted with people, you know people. How do you put together an orchestra that quickly? I mean, I would think that'd be a daunting task.
Yeah. So, in terms of how did that happen? So, you have mostly state orchestras in Europe,
Yeah.
especially Central Europe. The UK is a little different, but Central Europe is mostly state orchestras. You have some private orchestras also, privately sponsored orchestras, but. So the way we did that, well, we needed to now just getting technical, you have to build a legal framework. We were very fortunate through Paid & Prosper to have people in Vienna who helped us out with that, so that we can exist as a legal entity.
Yeah, let's back up for 2 seconds here, because Peyton is from here in Mississippi, and of course, he's. I mean, a lot of folks know him here. Involved. How in the heck did he know people in Vienna to be able to get the legal? I mean, that's just.
I think Peyton knows everybody.
He does.
I think Peyton probably knows people in Beijing or in the smallest city in I don't know, Chile. He knows people everywhere.
He's in the middle of Antarctica organizing penguins.
Exactly. He knows everybody. But he knew Peyton has been going to Vienna for years and years.
Okay.
For the balls.
Okay.
Vienna is very famous for these balls, where they have for it's like kind of like how well, I guess we kind of do balls a little bit too, and like different dances and stuff. But there it's a huge thing. Everybody goes to a ball every year, doing waltzes or other types of dances, and he had gone in January 2020, and I saw him in Vienna. I met him for the first time in 2019 in about September here in Jackson, and I saw him in Vienna in January. And he knows everybody. I don't know exactly how he knows everybody, but he does. And yeah.
It is a little bit scary, but I mean, it's nice. I was just thinking about that. Here you are. You're in probably one of the most culturally rich cities in the world, especially when it comes to music. I mean, like you said before, that you could throw a rock and hit a musical legend, history with just one like that.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the day, when you create this orchestra, so much of Mississippi is behind you and helping you get it organized and getting it funded. I just think that's such a great story.
Well, I have to, I'm very proud of my Mississippi, coming from Mississippi, and having Peyton and having John Palmer and having Carol Puckett and Bruce Livingston, they're all members of the orchestra's board. Along with Claudia, who I just mentioned, with the G20 concert, and I'm very proud of that. And it was great. Peyton and Carol came to our concert in October, just last October in Vienna. But to have a concert, you have to have advertising.
Yeah.
And Hilda Owens created the poster for our orchestra concert. She also created our logo and everything. She's here in Jackson.
She's so incredibly talented.
And so we had posters of this guy, random guy from Mississippi conducting an orchestra in Vienna, designed by a Mississippi design legend, just all across Vienna, and that just I found that to be incredible. I loved that.
Well, that's what's so great about that. That lineup of people that you just mentioned. They're all stars on the national and international stage as well.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't hurt to have Bruce in your corner, for instance. I mean,
exactly.
I know Bruce. I like to think he's a friend, and I'm just in awe of his talent as well. But I mean, you actually got to write a piece or you're writing a piece for him about the pandemic. As we joked about it on Monday, it's going to be a very long piece because it's apparently infinity. It's going to go on forever and ever and ever. But what's that process like, writing for a musician, particularly one that is a pro and is very demanding and work? Is that a stressful project, or is that something that's fun to do?
Well, I mean, it's fun. It's fun for me. It's stressful because I am writing about the pandemic.
Well,
but it's fun because I know that once it's finished, that it's like once it already a few, like I've got a few movements done, but once the piece is completed, to hear Bruce sit down and play it, it's going to be incredibly rewarding. And so that's why it's fun, because I know what the end result's going to be. Even though I don't know what it's going to be, but I know what it's going to be. If you know what I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very rewarding to hear it, done well, and to perform at the level that Bruce can, will do it, not just can, but will, and so I'm looking forward to that.
I know it's you're on such a level now that everybody you're dealing with is just so incredibly talented, so incredibly professional. How inspiring is that for you to be around people that are, they're pros? I mean, to me, it would be like getting. For instance, I interviewed Paige Braddock, and you probably don't know Paige, but Paige is the head of Schultz Enterprises that does Peanuts. Right.
Yep.
So she grew up in Wiggins, Mississippi, and she's got a Mississippi connection too. But she said, I get to hang around people all day long that love what they do and are incredibly creative. That has to be, I mean, right now, I guess during the pandemic, you're not getting to hang around too many people. It's kind of hard to do. But that has to be a real joy in what you do, is getting to hang around pros and being around people that inspire you and mentor you.
Well, it's an inspiration. There's nothing more inspiring than that. Like this summer, I was a conducting fellow at the Salzburg Music Festival, in Salzburg, Austria, which is one of these legendary, places. You read, there was a guest conductor there. He brought his orchestra from it's the East-West Divian Orchestra, which has its own history. I'm not going to go into all that right now. But Daniel Barenboim, world famous pianist, he played his first concert there when he's a prodigy. I think he was like 12 or something in the 50s, and he's now in his 80s.
Yeah,
and you read about people, these great conductors from history, like Wilhelm Furtwängler, who was the chief conductor of the Berlin Philharmonic back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and people back then. Daniel Barenboim played with him, and now he's there again, this year. And then you had Riccardo Muti, who's with the Chicago Symphony, conducting the Vienna Philharmonic at that place, and you had Franz Welser Most, who's the conductor of the Cleveland Orchestra, and these really giants, these titans, and you see them walking around, and you talk to them, and you realize, oh, you're a human also, and you're just an incredible human, but
exactly.
And so it was a real inspiration doing the Salzburg Festival and at the Parnu Music Festival in Estonia with Pavel Järvi and Christian Järvi, a musical dynasty of conductors, and it's like this is what true artistry as a conductor is. And so it's a lot of fun, and it's an inspiration.
Definitely. I mean, like I said, I'll be honest with you, and I mean, this isn't the part of the interview where I suck up to you, I promise, but just sitting down and reading about everything you've done, and reading about the things that you're doing now and everything else, it was inspiring to me on a personal level. I was like, man, I want to get better at what I do. And I'm just impressed when you're your average day, and like I said, you've got so many balls in the air now doing, all the different things that you do. What does a typical day look like for you?
Oh, well, a typical day, I mean, it's waking up in the morning. Um, I hate to be boring, but answering emails because as a conductor with an organization, you have a lot of administrative things, but then it's studying scores after that.
Yeah.
So immediately I try to stay on top of the emails, but then I start studying scores for upcoming performances, for future performances, and trying to think, okay, well, I don't know this one, but I know it's going to show up. Um, either I get a call and it shows up tomorrow, or I get a call and it shows up in next year. Then what I need to get ahead of it.
Yeah.
And then sitting down and writing music, or playing the cello every now and then. I don't play cello as much as I used to, or would like to. Just don't have the time anymore. But it's I mean, it's my days revolve completely around something related to music, related to getting better as a conductor, as a musician. And that's I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
but
it
that's
does.
kind of what I'm doing.
No, it does, because I mean, like I said, that and I think about the business of art, and I just know that the business of music has changed so much in such a short amount of time. Just even from ways you get funded, the ways you can make money, the ways recordings are funded, the way you make. I mean, it's not like you're going to get a record deal or whatever. For different types of music now, everything's totally blown up and so forth. So I'm just fascinated. I mean, I'm just interested in how you're literally at a 30,000 foot level when you're putting together an orchestra, but then you're down a little bit lower doing the conducting, and then occasionally when you get to play, you're on ground level. So it's just fascinating here you structure. And to me, it's kind of good that you're proactive, because you're planning out what you're going to be doing every day and your practice that you do and so forth. But you're also having to answer the emails and do the grunt work too as well.
Yeah.
So that's not, which I know is probably not your favorite thing in the world, but it's very, very
not at all.
No. But it is very important, because of these people that believe in you, that email you and want to give you money. Sometimes they need an answer back, I suppose. And speaking of the money thing, I know you have the foundation. I know that people can donate. Is there a way for people to be able to donate to the foundation and be able to get in touch?
Yes. So there's a way that they can. They can go to the orchestra's website, nowsymphony.com, nowsymphony.com, and there's a contact us. They can go to the contact us, and they can just contact us about how to do that. They can also go to my website, williamgarfieldwalker.com, just my name, williamgarfieldwalker.com. And they could contact me directly there, and I can give them information as well, just however they like to do it.
Okay, that sounds like a good deal. What do you have any upcoming performances on the horizon?
Yeah, so we will have the orchestra and I will have another concert in January, just next month.
Oh, nice.
Mid to late January, we'll have a concert. Then we'll have a performance in Vienna. Another performance in Vienna on the 27th of February in the big hall of the concert house there. Looking forward to that. I have a concert coming up in Moscow, depending on how things are going, in mid February as well. And then we have more performances in March. So things are going. Hopefully.
You're going to get to play conduct in Moscow. That's incredible. Just hopefully the Ukraine situation, I guess they can get that settled out so that doesn't cause too much problems. When do you think the next time you'll be conducting in Mississippi or doing anything here?
Well, I'm going to be back in Jackson the last week of May, early June, with the Premier Orchestral Institute, and that's the Mississippi Symphony's summer program. Mm-hmm. Which is housed at Millsaps. I'm the artistic director, conductor of the Master Camerata. That's the top group, university level and professional level group. And we'll have a concert. I don't know the exact date yet because it's not, we don't have the date, but I know it's going to be during that week. So hope to see a lot of people there.
Well, I'll keep up with you and make sure you drop me a note or I'll drop you a note or whatever around that time. I'll make sure I get the word out on this end because I want folks to be able to see you in action because, I mean, I'm glad to hear that you're back home and you're able to give back to the students that were in the same position you were in just a few years ago on that. Do you ever get to go back into JPS schools and talk to the kids there and say, hey, look, I was there. I was you. Just, just.
I mean, I do every now and then. And actually, so I was here in March 2020 with the Mississippi Symphony. But while I was here, I also conducted the All-State Orchestra. I'm sorry, our All-City Orchestra, which the JPS All-City Orchestra for high school students. And down at Dalyamara, we gave a concert. And so, awesome. Every now and then it happens, and it's always a lot of fun. It's fulfilling for me.
Yeah. Well, William, thank you so much. I mean, it's so good to get to talk to you again. And of course, it's just going to be fun to watch to see where your career goes from here because it's going up, 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 up.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I don't have to work on that drawing for you. So is there any particular thing you'd like me to draw? I mean, just make you handsome or what?
Well, yeah, just try to fix me up a bit, try.
Have you not seen my work before? That's not how it works. That's not how I operate. I'm kind of a blunt instrument when it comes to my artwork, but I'll make you handsome.
But that will still fix me up.
Oh. You're being modest on me again. William, I'll give good Christmas. It's just good to see you and enjoy your rest of your time here back at home.
Great. Thank you so much. It's always great talking to you. Hope we can do it again soon.
Okay. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Talk soon.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mississippi Stories. Make sure to subscribe to the Mississippi Today YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified every time a new video uploads.